miles down the hill.
Yes.
It's a totally different experience of, navigating and fast cars and people
Right.
with cell phones, and it's almost a frightening world when when you become accustomed to living in a peaceful environment, and nature is naturally peaceful.
Yes.
There's violence in nature too. I'm not saying that there's nothing. There was a fox recently that was killing chickens and ate 2 of my cats.
Wow.
But
right.
Those things happen in nature, and it's not entirely, all love and light and fluffy bunnies.
Right.
But it certainly is a lot more peaceful than the human lives that we've created in the cities and in trying to engage and take over other countries for their resources.
Yes. I feel what you're saying is so important. I feel that we still think of the natural world as kind of a material place in which we live, rather than thinking of it as our very selves.
Yes.
I mean, we are earth, fire, wind, water. We are. And I think that's why it feels so peaceful in some ways, because we are connected there with who we are. We're not truncating ourselves. We're not cutting ourselves off from the very sources of our living.
Yeah.
But when we're not in the natural world, we're cutting ourselves off. We're separating ourselves with concrete and glass and, purified air and old and far away, foods that come from far away. I mean, we so separate ourselves in so many ways from the very most basic sources of our own living.
Well, in many ways, it's really the cause of the death of the spirit and the connection to everything, and it's also kind of a genocidal. There's a genocidal effect. We have rarefied ourselves to the point where we could easily become extinct as a result of separating so far from the source.
Right.
And there's nothing religious or I'm not necessarily a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, if anything. But we have separated ourselves from the source, which is powerful.
Right.
And we think we are the power, and I think that's creating some very serious problems today.
I think you're completely right. Yes.
Gee, all you have to do is just, turn on the television set for 2 minutes, and you can see, my goodness, it's just a wall of lies and manipulations and distortions and ego and vanity and pompous windbags that think they're important, and all for what? To take over more country, more trillions of dollars. It's just really a sad state of affairs.
Well, and I really feel like you mentioned that What a Body Knows was the first in the trilogy.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm really the second book of this trilogy is called Family Planting. A farm-fed philosophy of human relations. And it's going to be coming out in January of next year, so it's in production right now. And
wonderful.
In this book, I really talk about our relationship to the natural world and our relationship to those sort of primary people in our lives who enable us to be who we are. So I focus on our relationship to our parents, our relationship to our partners, or those we choose to accompany us along the path, and our relationship to our children, or those for whom we have a responsibility. And really looking at the way in which our relationship to the natural world can open us up to give us resources for learning in these relationships how to live in love. And the sort of narrative for this is our first 4 years on the farm here and what we've learned, like the challenges that we've faced.
I bet that was an interesting story.
Oh, yes. It continues to be wildly surprising. And then the third book is designed to focus even more on our relationship to the natural world and the role of dancing and bodily movement in opening us up to experience our connectedness in a way that will allow us to cultivate a mutually enabling relationship with our environment.
And so, what will the third book be called?
I think it's called Earth Within.
Oh, I like that.
It's the working title.
All right. So now you've completed the second book?
I have, yes. It's in production now, and it should be published in the beginning of next year.
So you have found in this new experience of just following your dreams with your family who share the same dream, that you're able to just express yourself in ways that you could not possibly have done, for instance, at Harvard or in an educational environment or in a corporation.
Yes, that is very true.
And of course, it's not for everybody, but
no.
But I can't see why it wouldn't be. You know, the old paradigms are crumbling, and it might be that we need to return to some older, newer paradigms. You know,
right.
Such as communicating and community and storytelling and caring about one another and small community units that are empowering one another. And you know, there's so much that we haven't experienced here on this planet just because it's speeded up so much.
Right.
And we've gotten lost in the fray somewhere, and I think that we need a little direction to find our way out of this maze, and it sounds like your books are a wonderful tool to do that.
Well, I'm hoping that there are resources. I'm pretty clear in the books that I don't believe that there's one right path, and I don't believe our path is everybody's path, but there's an aspect of it that I feel is helpful. When we tell our stories and we share our stories, we can encourage each other to do the same kind of work.
Right.
Opening up to find, you know, where am I right now on the planet? And what are the moves that I need to make in my life to align with my health and my well-being and be creating communities that are supporting one another. I mean, create communities with humans and non-humans, right, in the non-human world that will be creating a world in which I want to live. So my books are designed to do that, sort of. I sometimes think about the first one in particular. I really wanted it to be a breath of fresh air, that you just, it's the kind of book that you would read and then it would shift your experience of things so that you can find your freedom. That's one of our themes here on the farm, is to stay in touch with your freedom. Realize that, you know, you can be going along and doing something because everybody else does it, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the right thing for you. So if you stay in touch with your freedom, you find that there's play in any moment. Play in terms of, you know, different possibilities for movement. And if you're in touch with your freedom, you can experiment with those and take advantage of those and move in different directions that allow you to create and bring into being things that you might not have imagined before. And so in some ways that's what all of the books are designed to do, is to really help people find their freedom and stay in touch with their own creativity.
Now, I do want to ask you a question, because some people will be wondering about this. Since you have had such a long training and have studied theology and Christianity so much, have you woven that into the book as something that, as part of your personal model, or is that something that you just live and you let others just experience whatever it is that they need to experience on their own?
Let's say, I feel that what I am doing in the books is developing a new approach to philosophy. So I consider myself a philosopher, even though I studied theology but much. I consider myself a philosopher in the sense of philosophia, a lover of wisdom. And I consider that what I am doing in my philosophy is trying to create a way of thinking about our human lives, and in particular our bodily selves, that will enable us, that will support the creation of values and actions and ways of thinking that will move us in a new direction as a society. So, wonderful. So that is very much there in the books. I've written the books so that they could be accessible to people who haven't had years of training
right.
in these fields.
Good.
But in the sort of in the bibliographic essays, and in this particular, in the second book, in some of the footnotes, I also provide resources for people who have had more training and might be interested in exploring the sources or the resources that are shaping my ways of thinking.
Oh, wonderful.
And I also feel, in general, spending so many years studying philosophy and theology, especially as it's been practiced in the modern West, I think that one of the things that's been missing is a kind of attention to lived experience, and in particular attention to women's experience and the living of experience of raising children and what's involved in that. So I feel that in some ways my time in the academy helped me shape the kind of problems, the kind of questions that I'm asking right now, moment by moment in my day, and then writing responses to in my books.
Well, wonderful. That certainly sounds good to me. Kimerer, we've just managed to fly an hour by quickly. I mean, it was such it just went like a breath of fresh air. So I want to thank you for being on the show and sharing your wisdom with us. And if you would just again mention your website where people can follow your work and find your book.
Thank you so much. It's What a Body Knows, www.whatabodyknows, all one word, .com.
Wonderful. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I wish I could see some pictures of your ranch. Maybe you should put some in your next book.
Well, there actually will be a few in Family Planting, but if you go to our website, and then you click on the website, if you look in the mission page and the news page and the people page, you'll find different pictures taken from around the farm. So
terrific. Well, thank you so much, Kimerer, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Lance. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. And good night, everybody. Stay tuned for the next show, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.